The year was 2157, and humanity had spread to Mars and Europa, but had not yet met any intelligent alien life. That was about to change. Dr. Daniel Carter sat at his desk, reading the message again. He had been chosen. Out of all the linguists on Earth, they had picked him to be part of the first diplomatic mission to the Araxians. "This is real," he whispered to himself, running a hand through his dark hair. At 35, Daniel had spent his whole career studying how aliens might communicate. Now he would finally meet some. The Araxians had reached out to Earth just 6 months ago. Their signals came from a star system 40 light-years away. Scientists were shocked when they received images of the Araxians, tall beings with pale blue skin and strange glowing patterns that shifted colors across their bodies. Daniel packed his few belongings. He wouldn't need much for the journey on the ship called Venture Dawn. The advanced vessel would take 3 months to reach the Araxian homeworld using the new faster-than-light drive. "Dr. Carter, the captain wants to see you on the bridge," said a voice over the intercom. Daniel made his way through the ship's corridors. The Venture Dawn was small compared to passenger ships, but it was built for this historic mission. He nodded to crew members as he passed them. Everyone looked tense, but excited. Captain Olivia Reeves stood looking at star charts when Daniel entered the bridge. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Dr. Carter, glad you could join us," she said. "We're going over final preparations. As our language expert, I want your input on first contact protocols." Security Chief Alan Morgan stood nearby, arms crossed. His military background showed in his rigid posture. "I still think we should have more security measures in place," he said. Natalie Klein, the science officer, shook her head. "The Araxians have been nothing but peaceful in all our communications. We don't want to appear hostile." Daniel listened to them argue for a few minutes before speaking up. "I've been studying the language samples they sent us. There's something strange about their linguistic structure." "Strange how?" Captain Reeves asked. Daniel pulled up some files on his tablet. "Look at these patterns. They remind me of some ancient Earth languages, specifically Proto-Indo-European roots. It's probably nothing, but it's interesting." Alan snorted. "You're saying these aliens talk like ancient humans? That's a stretch, Doc." "Not exactly like them," Daniel explained. "But there are patterns that shouldn't be there by random chance. The statistical likelihood of these similarities is very small." Captain Reeves looked thoughtful. "Any theories?" Daniel hesitated. "Nothing solid. But it makes me wonder if there might have been some contact between our species long ago, before recorded history." "That's impossible," Natalie said. "Humans couldn't travel to other star systems in ancient times." "I know how it sounds," Daniel admitted. "But I can't explain these similarities otherwise." The captain nodded slowly. "Keep looking into it, but keep these theories to yourself when we meet the Araxians. We don't want to start our relationship with wild claims." "Yes, Captain," Daniel agreed. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stayed up late in his quarters listening to recordings of the Araxian language. Their voices were musical, with clicks and tones humans couldn't fully reproduce. Yet the more he listened, the more he became convinced. These patterns weren't random. There was a connection between humans and Araxians, something ancient and forgotten. Daniel began practicing, trying to pronounce words in what he believed might be an ancient Araxian dialect. The words felt strangely familiar on his tongue. As the Venture Dawn traveled through space toward their historic meeting, Daniel filled notebook after notebook with his research. Something waited for them on Araxis, a mystery that connected two species across thousands of years and billions of miles. He just needed to prove it. The journey to Araxis was long. 3 months in space gave Daniel plenty of time to study the Araxian language recordings. Every day he sat in his small cabin, surrounded by notes and diagrams. "Computer, play recording series 7 again," Daniel said, rubbing his tired eyes. The alien voices filled his room, musical and strange, yet somehow familiar. Daniel closed his eyes and listened to the rise and fall of their speech. There it was again, that pattern that reminded him of ancient Earth languages. By the 6th week of their journey, Daniel had filled 12 notebooks with his research. He was now certain that the Araxian language shared roots with Proto-Indo-European, a language spoken on Earth thousands of years ago. This can't be a coincidence, he muttered to himself as he worked late into the night. The ship's artificial day-night cycle had long since shifted to night mode, but Daniel couldn't sleep. His discovery was too important. The next morning, he decided to share his findings with the crew. They gathered in the small meeting room near the bridge. "I know how this will sound," Daniel began. "But I believe humans and Araxians may have met before, thousands of years ago." Captain Olivia Reeves frowned. "That's impossible. Humans couldn't travel through space back then." "I know," Daniel agreed. "But listen to this." He played 2 recordings side by side, one of ancient Sanskrit from Earth and one of the Araxian. Formal language. The sentence structure and even some root sounds are almost identical. Science officer Natalie Klein leaned forward. "It could be coincidence. Language can only be structured in so many ways." "Not like this," Daniel insisted. "The statistical chance of these specific patterns matching by random chance is less than 1 in a billion. Security Chief Alan Morgan laughed. "So what's your theory, Doc? Ancient aliens visited Earth? Or did cavemen somehow build spaceships?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know how it happened, but the evidence of linguistic connection is there." Captain Reeves held up her hand for quiet. "Dr. Carter, your theory is interesting but potentially dangerous. If you're wrong, suggesting to the Araxians that we've met before could cause serious diplomatic problems. But if I'm right," Daniel started. "Until we have proof, this stays between us," the captain said firmly. "That's an order. No mentioning this theory to the Araxians." Daniel nodded, disappointed but understanding the captain's concern. Over the next few weeks, Daniel continued his research in secret. He began learning what he believed was an ancient form of the Araxian language, practicing phrases late at night, when the rest of the crew was asleep. One night, Natalie found him in the ship's common area, speaking strange words to himself. "What are you saying?" she asked. Daniel jumped, surprised. "Just practicing some Araxian phrases for when we arrive." Natalie sat across from him. "Those don't sound like the phrases in our official translation database." "They're not," Daniel admitted. "These are what I believe to be ancient dialectal forms." "The captain told you to drop this," Natalie reminded him. "I'm not going to cause trouble," Daniel promised. "But I need to understand this connection. It's too important to ignore." Natalie looked at him for a long moment. "Just be careful. First impressions with the Araxians will be critical." As the Venture Dawn approached the Araxian star system, tension grew among the crew. This was humanity's first meeting with intelligent alien life. Everything needed to go perfectly. Daniel stood at the viewing window, watching as a blue-green planet grew larger in their view. Araxis, the homeworld of humanity's first alien contact. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Reeves said, joining him at the window. "Yes," Daniel agreed. "And somewhere down there are answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet." The captain placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember what I said? No theories about ancient contact." Daniel nodded, but in his pocket, he held a small notebook filled with phrases in what he believed was the ancient Araxian tongue. If his theory was right, these words might be the key to something extraordinary. Araxis grew larger in the window. Their destination was just hours away. The Venture Dawn slowed as it entered Araxian space. A large orbital station waited for them, its curved shape unlike any human space station. "We're being hailed," said Captain Reeves. "Put it on screen." An Araxian face appeared on the main screen. The alien had light blue skin with glowing marks that pulsed with soft light. Its eyes were large and golden with no visible pupils. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the Araxian said through the translation device. "I am Portmaster Veltier. Welcome to Araxis." Captain Reeves stepped forward. "Thank you for your welcome. I am Captain Olivia Reeves of the Earth ship Venture Dawn. We come in peace and friendship." The translation devices worked well, but Daniel noticed small errors in the way the Araxians' words were translated. He made mental notes, eager to improve the translation programs. The Venture Dawn docked at the station, and the human delegation prepared to board. Daniel, Captain Reeves, Security Chief Allen, and Science Officer Natalie would represent Earth in this first face-to-face meeting. "Remember the protocols," Captain Reeves told them as they waited at the airlock. "No sudden movements. Follow their lead and greetings. Dr. Carter, you handle the language if the translators fail." The airlock opened and they stepped through to meet the Araxians. 5 tall aliens waited for them. Their skin glowed with shifting patterns of light, blues, greens, and purples moving like slow waves across their bodies. They wore simple clothing that left their arms and neck uncovered, showing more of the light patterns. "Welcome," said the leader, bowing slightly. "I am Ambassador Krelvos. We will escort you to Luminar, our capital city." The humans followed the Araxians to a transport ship. Through the windows, Daniel could see Araxis below them, a world of deep blue oceans and land masses covered in purple-tinted vegetation. "It's beautiful," Natalie whispered beside him. As they descended toward the planet, Daniel noticed the Araxians watching the humans closely. One of them, standing slightly apart from the others, seemed especially interested in Daniel. The transport landed in Luminar, a city unlike anything on Earth. Buildings rose like twisted shells, glowing with the same light patterns as Araxian skin. The streets curved in flowing patterns, and plants with bioluminescent flowers lined the walkways. "This way to the greeting hall," Ambassador Krelvos said. As they walked through the city, Daniel noticed ancient-looking carvings on some of the older buildings. The symbols matched ones he had studied from the Araxian language files. But here, seeing them in their original form, he recognized something he hadn't before. "These are almost identical to Sanskrit symbols," he thought, excitement building inside him. His theory was gaining more evidence. In the greeting hall, a large group of Araxians waited. Their light patterns pulsed in sync, creating a beautiful display of shifting colors. At the front stood a tall Araxian with elaborate patterns glowing on his skin. Beside him was a younger female Araxian, her patterns brighter and more changeable than the others. "I am High Counselor Zexara," the tall Araxian said. "On behalf of all Araxians, I welcome humans to our world." Captain Reeves stepped forward with the prepared greeting. As she spoke, Daniel watched the younger female Araxian. She was staring at him with intense golden eyes. When the formal greetings ended, the High Counselor spoke again. "My daughter, Nerilax, will be your cultural guide during your stay. She has studied all we know of humans." The young female Araxian stepped forward. "I am honored to meet you," she said, her voice musical through the translator. Her eyes never left Daniel. Daniel noticed tension in the room. Some Araxians kept their distance, their light patterns pulsing in rapid, sharp flashes. Not everyone was happy about humans visiting their world. "Tomorrow, Nerilax will show you our ancient temple complex," said High Counselor Zexara. "For now, rest in the quarters we have prepared." As they left the greeting hall, Daniel glanced back. Nerilax was watching him with curious eyes. Something told him she would be important to unraveling the mystery of the connection between their peoples. For 3 days, the human delegation met with Araxian officials. They talked about trade, science, and how their 2 worlds might work together. The meetings went well, but Daniel noticed something strange. Nerilax, their Araxian guide, watched him all the time. Whenever he spoke, her skin patterns would pulse brighter, as if she was excited. On the 4th day, Nerilax took them to see the ancient temple complex outside the city. They rode in a floating vehicle that glided silently above the purple-tinted fields. "These temples are our most sacred places," Nerilax explained. "They were built over 10,000 years ago, during what we call the Age of Enlightenment." Daniel stared out the window at the temple buildings. They were made of a dark stone that seemed to absorb light. Unlike the curved buildings in the city, these were angular and solid. They reminded him of ancient Earth structures like pyramids and ziggurats. "Who built them?" Daniel asked. Nerilax's skin patterns flickered. Our ancestors. Though some believe they had help from... She stopped suddenly as if she had said too much. From who? Daniel pressed. It is just a myth, she said quickly. Not something we discuss with visitors. The vehicle stopped at the base of the largest temple, the human. Delegation stepped out and followed Nerilax up a long flight of stone steps. At the top, other Araxians waited. They wore different clothing than those in the city. Long robes with symbols that Daniel recognized from his research. These are the temple guardians, Nerilax said. They protect our ancient knowledge. Inside the temple, the walls were covered with carvings and symbols. Daniel fell behind the group, stopping to study the writing. It was different from modern Araxian. It was the ancient language he had been studying on the ship. You find our old writings interesting? Nerilax asked, appearing beside him. Daniel nodded. They remind me of something. Of what? She asked, her golden eyes intent on his face. Before Daniel could answer, Captain Reeves called him to join the group. They were being shown into a large central chamber. Huge stone columns supported a domed ceiling. In the center of the room stood an unusual object, a ring of dark metal with strange symbols carved around its edge. This is the sacred ring, Nerilax explained. Our most holy artifact. It is said to have been given to us by the sky visitors in ancient times. Sky visitors? Natalie asked. Just a myth, one of the temple guardians said quickly, giving Nerilax a warning look. Daniel walked closer to the ring, studying the symbols. They were almost identical to those in his notebook. The ancient language he believed connected humans and Araxians. Security Chief Allen moved closer to the ring as well. What's it made of? He asked, reaching out his hand. Do not touch it, a temple guardian shouted, but it was too late. Allen's fingers hadn't even made contact when alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed, and suddenly the room was filled with armed Araxian guards. Their skin patterns flashed bright red and orange, colors Daniel hadn't seen Araxians display before. Step away from the sacred ring, the lead guard commanded, pointing a weapon at Allen. I didn't touch it, Allen protested, raising his hands. Captain Reeves stepped forward. This is a misunderstanding. We mean no disrespect. More guards entered the chamber surrounding the humans. Their weapons hummed with energy. Daniel saw Nerilax arguing with the lead guard. Her skin patterns flashed rapidly, showing her distress. May. The tense silence that followed, Daniel noticed something on the wall behind the sacred ring. A large inscription in the ancient script. The pieces suddenly came together in his mind, the writing in his notebook, the symbols on the temple walls, the words he had practiced in secret during the journey. They were all connected, and now he understood. The sky visitors, from Araxian, legend. They had been humans. As weapons were aimed at his friends and the situation became more dangerous, Daniel knew what he had to do. He stepped forward, took a deep breath, and spoke 7 words in the ancient language he had studied. The temple fell silent as Daniel's voice echoed through the chamber. The 7 words he spoke sounded strange to human ears, but they had a musical quality that seemed to hang in the air. Nekavari ethtalon suvramesk volontir. Every Araxian in the room froze. Their skin patterns, which had been flashing angry red and orange, suddenly shifted to deep blue and purple. They stared at Daniel as if they could not believe what they had heard. Nerilax's eyes widened. The patterns on her skin pulsed rapidly, going from blue to white. She stepped toward Daniel slowly, as if in a dream. You speak our ancient tongue, she said, her voice filled with shock and wonder. The guards lowered their weapons. Some of them dropped to their knees, their skin glowing with soft white light. Captain Reeves looked at Daniel in confusion. What did you say to them? Daniel didn't have time to answer. The lead temple guardian approached him, studying his face closely. How does this human know the 7 words of knowing? He asked Nerilax. I don't know, she replied, still staring at Daniel. But he spoke them perfectly with the correct tones. The lead guard turned to the other Araxians and spoke quickly in their language. The translator didn't catch all of it, but Daniel heard the words prophecy and return. "What's happening?" Security Chief Allen whispered to Daniel. "What did you say to them?" "I'm not entirely sure," Daniel admitted. "I found those words repeated in several ancient texts. They seemed important." Nerilax stepped closer to Daniel. "The 7 words of knowing are sacred to our people. They are said to have been taught to our ancestors by those who came from the sky. No outsider has ever known them." The temple guardian, who seemed to be in charge, approached Captain Reeves. "We must speak with your language expert alone." "That's not acceptable," Captain Reeves said firmly. "We stay together." Nerilax's skin flashed with a pattern that Daniel recognized as urgency. "Please," she said. "This is very important. I will go with him. No harm will come to him." Captain Reeves looked at Daniel. "It's your call, Dr. Carter." Daniel thought, for a moment. This was his chance to learn the truth about the connection between humans and Araxians. "I'll go," he decided. "But I want to be able to communicate with the ship." The temple guardian nodded. "You may keep your communication device. The daughter of the High Counselor will ensure your safety." "I'll be back soon," Daniel told Captain Reeves. "This might be the breakthrough we've been hoping for." Captain Reeves still looked worried. "1 hour, then I'm coming to find you." Daniel nodded and followed Nerilax and the temple guardian through a small door hidden behind one of the stone columns. It led to a narrow hallway lit by glowing stones embedded in the walls. "Where are we going?" Daniel asked. "To the Chamber of Memories," Nerilax replied. "It is forbidden to most Araxians, but the elders must see you now." As they walked, Daniel noticed more ancient writings on the walls. He could understand some of the symbols now. "Your words caused quite a stir," Nerilax said as they walked. "The 7 words of knowing are from our oldest texts. They are said to be a greeting taught to us by the sky visitors." "And who were these sky visitors?" Daniel asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Nerilax's skin patterns swirled with blues and greens. "Beings who came to Araxis, long ago. They taught our ancestors many things, then left with a promise to return someday." They stopped at a large stone door. The temple guardian pressed his hand against it, and it slid open silently. Inside, 7 elderly Araxians sat in a semicircle. Their skin patterns were faint and slow-moving, showing their great age. "Elders," Nerilax said, bowing deeply. "This human spoke the 7 words of knowing." The oldest Araxian, whose skin barely glowed at all, leaned forward to look at Daniel. "After so many thousands of years," the elder said in a raspy voice, "the sky people have returned to us." Daniel stood before the 7 Araxian elders, their ancient eyes studying him closely. The chamber was small and dimly lit, with only the soft glow of the elders' skin patterns providing light. "I am not a sky person," Daniel said carefully. I'm human from Earth, but I believe our peoples may have met before a long time ago." The oldest elder raised a thin hand. "Sit, human. Tell us how you came to know our ancient words." Daniel sat on the offered cushion. Nerilax remained standing nearby, her skin patterns pulsing with excitement. "I studied the language samples your people shared with us," Daniel explained. "I noticed patterns that matched very old human languages. The more I studied, the more connections I found." "Which is why you could speak the 7 words," Nerilax said. Daniel nodded. "Those words were repeated in several texts. I learned to pronounce them, but I didn't know what they meant." "They mean, 'We return as friends, remember our promise,'" the oldest elder said slowly. "They are part of our most sacred history." Another elder leaned forward. "Our oldest texts tell of beings who came from the sky. They taught our ancestors many things, writing, mathematics, star knowledge. Then they left, promising to return one day." "These sky visitors," Daniel said. "What did they look like?" The elders exchanged glances. One of them touched a panel on the wall. A section of the stone floor slid away, revealing a deep pit. From the pit rose a stone tablet, covered in carvings. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The tablet showed tall beings with no skin patterns, no Araxian features at all. They looked human. "This is why some among us feared your coming," Nerilax said softly. "You look like the sky visitors from our ancient carvings." Daniel's mind raced. But humans couldn't travel through space thousands of years ago. "Our society is divided on this matter," the oldest elder explained. "The progressives, including young Nerilax, believe the sky visitors were real beings who came from another world. The traditionalists, including her father High Counselor Zexara, believe they were just myths created to explain natural events. When your people contacted us," Nerilax added, "the traditionalists feared you would validate our beliefs about the sky visitors." Which is exactly what has happened, Daniel realized. No wonder some Araxians seemed uncomfortable with our presence. "There is more," the oldest elder said. "Come." The elders led Daniel and Nerilax through another hidden doorway into a tunnel that sloped downward into the earth. They walked for several minutes before emerging into a large cave. The walls of the cave were covered with paintings. Daniel stared in amazement. The paintings showed beings that looked exactly like humans, working side by side with ancient Araxians. They were building structures, studying the stars, and writing in a shared language. "These paintings are 15,000 years old," Nerilax told him. "Few Araxians have ever seen them. The traditionalists keep them hidden." Daniel touched one of the paintings gently. "This proves my theory. Somehow humans reached Araxis in ancient times." "But how?" Nerilax asked. "Your people didn't have space travel then." "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But the evidence is here. The language connection, these paintings, they all point to ancient contact between our species." One of the elders approached them. "When your people first contacted us, the traditionalist faction gained power. High Counselor Zexara believes that acknowledging ancient human contact would destroy our cultural identity. That's why he seemed so tense during our meetings," Daniel realized. Nerilax's skin patterns darkened with worry. "My father doesn't know I've shown you these things. If he finds out, he already knows," said a new voice from the tunnel entrance. They all turned to see High Counselor Zexara standing there, his skin patterns flashing with anger. Behind him stood several armed guards. "Nerilax, you have betrayed our ways," the High Counselor said coldly. "And you, human, have meddled in matters that do not concern your kind." The guards raised their weapons, pointing them at Daniel. "Father, please," Nerilax began, but Zexara cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Take the human to the holding cells," he ordered. "The Earth delegation will be told he violated sacred laws and must remain in our custody." Daniel sat in a small cell with smooth stone walls. There was only one door, made of some kind of metal he didn't recognize. No windows, no way out. He had been there for hours, maybe longer. It was hard to tell time in the windowless room. The door slid open suddenly. Nerilax rushed in, her skin patterns flashing with urgent blues and purples. "We don't have much time," she said quickly. "The guards will realize I'm here soon." Daniel stood up. "What's happening?" "Your father is planning something terrible," Nerilax finished. "He's told your Captain Reeves that you attacked a sacred object and must stay in our custody." "That's a lie," Daniel protested. "I know," she said, "but there's more. He's feeding your people false information, making them think you tried to steal Araxian secrets. He wants them to leave without you." Daniel felt cold inside. "Why would he do that?" "Because you know too much," Nerilax explained. "You confirm what the progressives have always believed, that humans visited us long ago. My father fears this truth would change our society forever." "He can't just make me disappear," Daniel said. "Captain Reeves won't leave without me." Nerilax's patterns darkened. "That's what worries me. My father has convinced the council that humans are dangerous. If your captain refuses to leave..." She didn't finish the sentence. "We need to contact my ship," Daniel said. "I need to warn them." "Your communication device was taken," Nerilax said. "But I have another plan. Come. She looked outside the cell, then motioned for Daniel to follow. They slipped into the corridor, moving quietly through the shadowy temple passages. Where are we going? Daniel whispered. Back to the cave with the paintings, she replied. There's something there I need to show you. They moved through the temple carefully, hiding whenever they heard guards approaching. Finally, they reached the tunnel leading to the cave. Inside, the ancient paintings glowed faintly in the dim light. Nerelax led Daniel to the far end of the cave, where a large circular carving covered the wall. This is what my father truly fears, she said, placing her hand on the carving. The Great Circle. The carving began to glow where she touched it. Lines of light spread out from her hand, following grooves in the stone that Daniel hadn't noticed before. What is it? He asked, staring as the entire circle lit up with glowing patterns. Our ancestors called it the path between stars, Nerelax explained. The legends say the sky visitors used it to travel instantly between worlds. Daniel looked at the glowing circle with new understanding. A transportation device, like the sacred ring we saw earlier? Yes. The progressives have long believed the sky visitors, humans, built a network of these devices linking many worlds. Her skin patterns shifted to a thoughtful blue. But all of them stopped working thousands of years ago. Daniel examined the symbols around the edge of the circle. They matched the writing in his notebook, the ancient language shared by humans and Araxians. This could explain how humans visited Araxis in ancient times, he said excitedly. Not with spaceships, but with some kind of transportation network. A noise from the tunnel made them both turn. Footsteps were approaching. They've found us, Nerelax whispered. My father must have guessed I would bring you here. Daniel looked back at the Great Circle. Can we make it work? Use it to escape? No one knows how, she said sadly. Our scientists have tried for generations. The footsteps grew louder. Daniel studied the symbols frantically, comparing them to what he remembered from his research. 7 symbols around the edge looked familiar, similar to the 7 words of knowing he had spoken. Maybe, he started, then placed his hand on the circle as Nerelax had done. He spoke the 7 words again, but this time in a different order following the sequence of symbols. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the great circle began to pulse with energy, the light growing brighter and brighter. What's happening? Nerelax asked, her skin patterns flashing with alarm. I think I activated it, Daniel said in disbelief. High Counselor Zexara and 6 armed guards rushed into the cave, weapons drawn. Stop them, the High Counselor shouted. They must not awaken the circle. But it was too late. The great circle flared with blinding light, and a map of stars appeared in the air before them. The star map hung in the air between Daniel and the Araxian guards. Tiny points of light formed shapes and lines, showing star systems and paths connecting them. At the center glowed 2 bright points, one blue, one green. Araxis and Earth, Daniel whispered in amazement. High Counselor Zexara stepped forward, his skin patterns flashing with anger and fear. Shut it down, he ordered his guards. Destroy it if you must. Nerelax moved to stand between her father and the star map. No, this is our history, Father. The truth you've tried to hide. 2 of the guards raised their weapons, but they looked uncertain. We need to get to the human ship, Daniel said to Nerelax. We have to show everyone the truth. Nerelax nodded. There's a passage this way that leads outside the temple. They ran toward a small opening at the back of the cave, the star map still glowing behind them. High Counselor Zexara shouted orders to his guards. After them, they must not reach the Earth ship. Daniel and Nerelax raced through narrow stone passages. They emerged into the fading daylight of the Araxian evening. The city of Luminar spread out below them, glowing with bioluminescent light. The landing pad is that way, Nerelax said, pointing to a flat area near the edge of the city. Your ship is still there. They ran down the hillside, taking small paths between buildings to avoid being seen. In the distance, Daniel could hear alarms sounding. The whole city would be looking for them soon. Look. Nerilax pointed ahead. The Venture Dawn sat on the landing pad, but activity around it suggested it was preparing to leave. Daniel activated his emergency communicator, which Nerilax had recovered for him. Captain Reeves, this is Daniel. Can you hear me? After a moment of silence, the captain's voice came through. Daniel? Where are you? We were told you attacked an Araxian holy site and were being held for trial. That's not true, Daniel said quickly. It's a lie by High Counselor Zex Ara. He's trying to keep us from learning the truth about our peoples. What truth? Captain Reeves asked. Humans and Araxians met thousands of years ago, Daniel explained. We have proof, but we need to get back to the ship, and we need to broadcast what we've found to everyone, humans and Araxians. There was silence for a moment. Then, see you on the scanner. Keep coming, we'll be ready. Daniel and Nerilax continued toward the landing pad. They were almost there when floating vehicles appeared behind them, carrying armed Araxian guards. They're catching up, Nerilax said, her skin patterns flashing with fear. They reached the edge of the landing pad just as the guards closed in. Security Chief Allen and several crew members rushed out from the ship carrying weapons. Stop! High Counselor Zexara's voice boomed from one of the vehicles. Return the human to us, or we will consider this an act of war. Captain Reeves stepped out of the ship. What's going on here, Dr. Carter? Daniel caught his breath. The Araxians and humans have a shared history. Their sky visitors were humans who came here thousands of years ago, using some kind of transportation network. And my father wants to hide this truth, Nerilax added. He fears it would change our society too much. We activated an ancient device, Daniel continued. It showed a map of connected worlds, including Earth and Araxis. The High Counselor's vehicle landed and he stepped out, looking furious. These are lies and myths, nothing more. Daniel turned to Captain Reeves. We need to broadcast what we found to everyone. Captain Reeves studied his face for a moment, then nodded. Science Officer Klein, prepare the ship's communication system for a planetary broadcast. No! The High Counselor shouted. His guards raised their weapons. Daniel stepped forward and spoke in the ancient Araxian tongue, words he had seen on the cave walls. They were different from the 7 words of knowing. These formed a peace ritual that no Araxian could ignore. The guards froze. The High Counselor stared at Daniel in shock. The human speaks the peace words, one of the elders said, appearing from another vehicle. By our oldest laws, we must listen. Within hours, the images from the cave were broadcast to all Araxians and sent back to Earth. The star map showed not just Earth and Araxis, but a dozen other worlds, all once connected by the ancient transportation network. 1 month later, Daniel stood with Nerilax in a new building constructed near the temple. Around them, human and Araxian scientists worked together to understand the ancient technology. We found records of 5 more transportation rings on other worlds, Nerilax said, her skin patterns glowing with excitement. Daniel smiled. A whole network of planets visited by our ancestors. Just think of what we'll learn together. Outside the window, Araxian and human children played together. An elderly Araxian teacher was teaching them words in the ancient shared language, building a bridge between worlds that had been separated for thousands of years.